The dust cloud from Candace's black Mercedes swallowed me whole as she sped away. I stood there on that empty desert road, still wearing my funeral dress, watching my only daughter abandon me like yesterday's garbage. The Arizona sun beat down on my 61-year-old shoulders, and all I could hear was her final words echoing in my head. "You're on your own now, Mother. Figure it out." My husband, Raymond, had been in the ground for less than 2 hours. Let me tell you how I got here, standing on this remote road 40 miles from Phoenix, questioning everything I thought I knew about my own child. Before we continue, please tell us where you're watching from so we know how far our stories reach, and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. My name is Vivian Washington, and for 38 years, I worked as a housekeeper. Every morning at 5 a.m., I'd put on my uniform and clean other people's homes, rich folks mostly. The kind who'd leave $100 bills on their counters but wouldn't look you in the eye. Raymond worked construction, breaking his back under that burning sun to provide for our family. We weren't rich, but we were proud. We raised our daughter Candace with love, discipline, and faith. What my daughter never knew, what nobody knew except Raymond and my lawyer, was that I was far from poor. It started 25 years ago. I was cleaning this big house in Scottsdale, and the owner, Mrs. Mrs. Harper, she was selling it. I overheard her on the phone saying she'd take any reasonable offer just to be done with it. She was moving to California, and the property had been sitting on the market for months. That night, I went home and told Raymond I wanted to buy it. He looked at me like I'd lost my mind. We had maybe $15,000 in savings. The house was listed at $90,000. But I'd been reading, studying, learning everything I could about real estate during my lunch breaks. I knew that house was worth more. I knew the neighborhood was about to boom. Raymond trusted me. We took out every loan we could, scraped together a down payment, and bought that house. I kept cleaning other people's homes by day, but that house became a rental property. Within 2 years, we'd paid off the loans and bought another property, then another, then another. By the time Raymond got sick 5 years ago, we owned 43 properties across Arizona. Apartments, houses, commercial buildings. We were worth over $8 million. But we kept living simple. Raymond kept working until the cancer made it impossible. I kept putting on that housekeeper uniform every single day. Why? Because I loved the work. I loved the independence. And honestly, I wanted to see who my daughter would become without money changing her. Turns out, money wasn't the problem. Shame was. Candace had always been bright. Full scholarship to Arizona State University. Graduated with honors in business. Married Terrell Mitchell, a corporate attorney who came from old money. They had 2 beautiful children, my grandbabies, Zion and Amara. 7 and 5 years old, the lights of my life. But somewhere along the way, Candace became embarrassed of me. It started small. She'd introduce me to her friends as Vivian instead of Mom. When they'd ask what I did, she'd say she works in property management, which was technically true. But the way she said it, you'd never know I owned the properties. She stopped inviting me to her fancy parties, stopped bringing the kids around unless Raymond and I drove to their house. "Mother, you smell like cleaning products," she told me once when I hugged her after work. "Can't you at least shower before you come over?" Raymond would get so angry. "That's our daughter talking to you like that," he'd say. "Let me tell her the truth. Let me show her what we built." But I always stopped him. "Not yet," I'd say. "She needs to learn some things first." 3 years ago, Candace and Terrell moved into this beautiful house in Paradise Valley. 3,000 square feet, swimming pool, mountain views. They had a housewarming party. Invited everybody from Terrell's law firm, all their wealthy friends. They invited Raymond and me too, but when we arrived, Candace met us at the door. "Mother, Daddy, actually, could you come another time? Terrell's senior partner is here, and I don't want any confusion about—" She didn't finish the sentence. Didn't have to. Raymond turned around and walked away. I'd never seen him cry before that night. I didn't cry, though. I just made a decision. I went home and looked up the address of Candace's beautiful new house in my property management files. And there it was. Candace had been living in one of my properties for the past 7 years. She'd rented it from VRW Holdings, Vivian Raymond Washington Holdings, my management company. She had no idea her embarrassing housekeeper mother was her landlord. She'd been writing rent checks to my company every single month, $12,000 a month, never late. The irony was so bitter I almost choked on it. Raymond's cancer got worse. Stage 4. The doctors gave him 6 months. He lasted 18, fighting every single day. During that time, Candace visited maybe 6 times. Always rushed, always checking her phone. She never brought the kids. Said they were too young to see their grandfather like that, all weak and thin. "They're not too young," Raymond whispered to me one night. "She just doesn't want them around us. Doesn't want them knowing where they came from." "Hush now," I said, holding his hand. "Save your strength." "Promise me something, Viv," he said, his eyes sharp despite the pain. "Promise me you'll teach her. Our daughter needs to learn what real wealth is. And it ain't money." I promised him. 2 weeks later, Raymond Washington closed his eyes and went home to glory. The funeral was beautiful. Our church family showed up, Greater Faith Baptist, where we'd been members for 40 years. Pastor Elijah gave a powerful eulogy. The choir sang Precious Lord. The whole church was packed with people whose lives Raymond had touched. Candace showed up late, wearing designer sunglasses and a black dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Terrell was with her, but not the kids. "They had soccer practice," Candace said when I asked. "We couldn't reschedule." "Your grandfather's funeral, and you couldn't reschedule soccer practice." After the burial, people were gathering at the church for the repast. Our church sisters had cooked enough food to feed an army. Fried chicken, mac and cheese, collard greens, sweet potato pie. The kind of love you can't buy. Candace pulled me aside. "Mother, Terrell and I can't stay for the meal. We have somewhere to be. But I'll give you a ride home since you rode with Pastor Elijah this morning." I should have said no. Should have stayed with my church family. But I wanted to be near my daughter. Wanted to believe she'd comfort me. We'd just buried my husband, her father, and I needed my child. We got in her Mercedes. The leather seats were cold despite the heat outside. She didn't head toward my house, though. She took the highway going the opposite direction. "Candace, honey, where are we going?" "I need to tell you something, Mother." Her voice was flat, cold. "Terrell and I have been talking. With Daddy gone, we think it's time you faced some realities." My heart started pounding. "What realities?" "You're alone now. Daddy was the one with the steady income. You're just a housekeeper. You barely make enough to survive. That little house you live in, it's falling apart." "Candace, let me finish." She gripped the steering wheel tighter. We were getting farther from the city, nothing but desert on both sides. "Terrell and I have our own family to think about. Zion starts private school next year. That's $30,000 a year. We have our mortgage, our lifestyle to maintain. We simply cannot take on the burden of supporting you financially. I never asked you to. We're not running a charity, Mother. You made your choices. You chose to stay a housekeeper your whole life. You chose not to better yourself, get an education, build something. That's not our fault." The words hit me like physical blows, each one carefully chosen, deliberately cruel. "So here's what's going to happen," she continued. "You're going to figure out your own situation. Maybe get a job at one of those senior centers. Apply for government assistance. Whatever you need to do. But you cannot expect us to rescue you from your own poor decisions." She pulled over. We were in the middle of nowhere, just desert, mountains in the distance, and the empty road. "Candace, what are you doing?" She put the car in park, turned to look at me with eyes that belonged to a stranger. "Daddy's gone. There's no reason to keep pretending anymore. I'm done being embarrassed. Done making excuses for why my mother cleans toilets for a living. You're on your own now, Mother. Figure it out. You can't be serious. We're 40 miles from... There's a gas station about 5 miles that way. She pointed down the road. You can walk it. Maybe it'll give you time to think about your life choices. I sat there frozen. This couldn't be happening. Not my Candace. Not my baby girl. Get out of the car, Mother. Candace, please. Get out! I got out, stood there on that desert road in my funeral dress and my good church shoes. She didn't even wait for me to close the door. Just reached over, yanked it shut, and hit the gas. The dust cloud swallowed me whole as she sped away. I watched her taillights disappear. My legs felt weak. My husband was dead. My daughter had just abandoned me like trash on the side of the road. And she had no idea, absolutely no idea, who she'd just betrayed. I reached into my purse, pulled out my phone and made a call. Mrs. Washington? My lawyer's voice came through. I'm so sorry about Mr. Raymond. How are you holding up? My hand was shaking, but my voice was steady. Gerald, I need you to prepare an eviction notice for the property at 4782 Desert Vista Drive in Paradise Valley. 30 days. And I want you to deliver it personally. There was a pause. Mrs. Washington, that's your daughter's address? I know exactly whose address it is. Another pause, longer this time. Are you absolutely sure about this? I looked down the empty road where my daughter had disappeared, thought about Raymond's words, promise me you'll teach her. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Consider it done. I'll have the papers drawn up tomorrow. I hung up and called Pastor Elijah. While I waited for him to come get me from this God-forsaken stretch of desert, I thought about what was coming. Candace had no idea what she'd just set in motion. She thought she'd abandoned a helpless old housekeeper on the side of the road. What she'd really done was wake up the dragon she never knew existed. My daughter wanted me to figure it out? Oh, honey. I was about to teach her the most expensive lesson of her life. Pastor Elijah found me sitting on a rock by the roadside, my good shoes covered in dust. He didn't ask questions, just wrapped his suit jacket around my shoulders, even though it was 90 degrees out, and drove me home in silence. When we pulled up to my modest 3-bedroom house, the same house Raymond and I had bought 35 years ago, he finally spoke. Sister Vivian, I've known you and Brother Raymond since before Candace was born. Whatever you're carrying right now, you don't have to carry it alone. I looked at this good man who'd baptized my daughter, married her, blessed my grandchildren. A man who thought I was just a simple housekeeper who needed help paying the electric bill. Pastor, can I trust you with something? Always. I'm not who everyone thinks I am. Over the next hour, sitting in my living room surrounded by photos of my family, I told him everything. The properties, the investments, the $8 million. The fact that my ungrateful daughter had been my tenant for 7 years without knowing it. His eyes got wider with every word. Sweet Jesus, he whispered when I finished. All these years, when we took up offerings to help with Brother Raymond's medical bills, I appreciated every prayer and every dollar, I said firmly. That love meant more than any amount of money. And yes, I could have paid those bills myself, but watching this church family come together? That was worth more than gold. That's what real wealth looks like, Pastor. He nodded slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. And now? Now my daughter needs to learn what she threw away today. The eviction notice was delivered on a Tuesday morning, exactly 1 week after Raymond's funeral. Gerald, my lawyer, told me later how it went down. Candace answered the door in her silk robe, coffee cup in hand. Gerald introduced himself as representing VRW Holdings. Her face showed confusion, then annoyance. This must be some mistake, she said, scanning the document. We've never been late on rent. Not once in 7 years. Our lease doesn't expire for another 6 months. There's no mistake, Mrs. Mitchell. The property owner is exercising their right to terminate the lease. You have 30 days to vacate. This is insane! Who owns this company? I want to speak to them directly. Gerald adjusted his glasses. The owner prefers to remain anonymous. All communication goes through me. You have 30 days, Mrs. Mitchell. The notice is legally binding. She threatened to sue, threatened to call the Attorney General, threatened everything except what she should have done, which was be humble and ask questions. Gerald stood firm. 30 days, ma'am. Have a blessed day. That afternoon, my phone rang. Candace. I let it go to voicemail. She called 6 more times, each message more frantic than the last. Mother, it's me. Call me back. Mother, this is serious. We're being evicted. I need to talk to you. Mother, where are you? Why aren't you answering? Mother, pick up the phone. I deleted every message without listening all the way through. 2 days later, she showed up at my house, pounded on the door like the police. I opened it slowly, wearing my housekeeper uniform. I'd just come back from cleaning Mrs. Mrs. Brennan's vacation home. Mother, thank God! She pushed past me into the house. Have you been getting my calls? I've been working, Candace. Some of us have to earn a living. She missed the edge in my voice completely. Mother, we have a crisis. Someone's trying to evict us from our house. Can you believe it? After 7 years of perfect payments? Terrell thinks it's some corporate takeover thing, but we need to find somewhere to stay while we fight this. I was thinking... Thinking what? She looked around my small living room like she was seeing it for the first time. The worn couch, the old TV, the carpet that needed replacing. Her nose wrinkled slightly. Well, you have that extra bedroom. It would just be temporary. Maybe a few weeks while Terrell handles the legal issues. I stared at my daughter. The audacity was breathtaking. Let me understand this correctly. You want to move into my house? The house that's falling apart? With your children? The same children who were too busy with soccer practice to attend their grandfather's funeral? Her face flushed. That's not fair, Mother. You know how busy the kids are. Busy. Right. I walked past her to the kitchen, started making myself tea. My hands were steady. And remind me, Candace, where did you leave me 1 week ago today? She had the decency to look uncomfortable. Mother, I apologized for that. No, you didn't. Well, I was upset. We'd just buried Daddy. I wasn't thinking straight. You weren't thinking straight when you drove me 40 miles into the desert and abandoned me on the side of the road. Told me I was on my own? That you were done being embarrassed by your housekeeper mother? The color drained from her face. I said I was sorry. No, Candace. You didn't say that. You haven't said that. Not once. I poured my tea, the steam rising between us. But now you need something, so here you are. Mother, I'm your daughter. Where else would I go? I don't know, baby. Where did you think I should go when you left me stranded in the desert? She opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. There was a gas station 5 miles away. You had your phone. Ah, yes, the gas station. How thoughtful of you to mention that before you sped off. Mother, are you seriously going to hold that against me forever? I need your help. I took a sip of my tea. It burned going down, but I didn't flinch. No. What? I said no. You cannot stay here. You and your family need to figure it out. Make your own way. Isn't that what you told me? That you're not running a charity? Her eyes went wide with disbelief. You're being petty. Daddy would be so disappointed. Don't you dare. My voice came out low and dangerous. Don't you dare use your father's name. The man who loved you unconditionally. Who you couldn't be bothered to visit more than 6 times during his last year on Earth. Who you prevented his grandchildren from saying goodbye to. Tears started running down her face. Real tears this time, not the crocodile kind. Mama, please. I know I messed up. I know I've been a terrible daughter, but I'm scared. Terrell says we might lose everything. The eviction is legal. We can't fight it. We have 30 days to find a new place, and nothing in Paradise Valley is available. The kids are in school. Zion has friends. Amara just joined the dance team. And whose fault is that? She stopped crying, looked at me with something like hatred flickering in her eyes. What do you want from me? To grovel? To beg? Fine. I'm begging. We need a place to stay. You need to leave my house. Are you serious right now? As a heart attack. Get out. She stood there, trembling with rage and tears. You're really going to turn away your own daughter? Your own grandchildren? My grandchildren that I haven't seen in 6 months? Those grandchildren? We've been busy. Get out. She grabbed her purse, headed for the door, then turned back. Her face was twisted with something ugly. You know what? Maybe I was right all along. Maybe I should be embarrassed. What kind of mother are you? Still living in this dump, wearing that ridiculous uniform, barely scraping by? You're pathetic. Goodbye, Candace. She slammed the door so hard a picture frame fell off the wall. It was a photo of her on her wedding day, me helping her with her veil. The glass cracked right down the middle. I picked it up carefully, removed the photo, and threw the broken frame in the trash. That night, Gerald called with an update. Mrs. Washington, I thought you should know. Mrs. Mitchell hired an attorney. They're trying to find out who owns VRW Holdings. They're digging deep. Let them dig. Everything's properly hidden behind LLC structures, right? Yes, ma'am. It would take a forensic accountant months to trace it back to you, if they even could. Good. Mrs. Washington, if I may ask, how far are you planning to take this? I thought about Candace's face when she called me pathetic. Thought about Raymond dying while his daughter checked her phone. Thought about my grandbabies who didn't know their grandmother because their mother was ashamed. All the way, Gerald. All the way. The next 2 weeks were interesting. Through my church network, people Candace had never bothered to get to know, I heard everything. How she was frantically house hunting but couldn't find anything suitable in their price range. How Terrell was stressed about work because this situation was distracting him. How they'd had to tell the kids they were moving, and Zion had cried because he'd have to change schools. Sister Beatrice from the prayer ministry came to visit me. She brought a sweet potato pie and concern in her eyes. Sister Vivian, I heard your Candace is having troubles. Something about losing her house? Is that right? Ran into her at the grocery store. She looked stressed, poor thing. I told her about the apartments on Jefferson Street. You know, the nice ones with the playground? I almost smiled. The apartments on Jefferson Street were mine too. That's thoughtful of you, Sister Beatrice. She said they were too expensive. Can you imagine? Those apartments are reasonable. But I guess with her fancy lifestyle. She trailed off, then patted my hand. How are you holding up, sugar? I know you miss Brother Raymond. Every day, but I'm all right. You sure? Because if you need anything... Actually, Sister Beatrice, there is something. I'd like to plan a gathering, a celebration of Raymond's life, but more intimate. Just close friends and family. At the church fellowship hall, maybe? Her face lit up. Oh, that's a beautiful idea. When were you thinking? 3 weeks from now, Saturday afternoon. I'll cover all the costs, but I'd love help with the planning. Say no more. The sisters and I will handle everything. You just worry about healing, baby. After she left, I made another call. Gerald, I need you to do something for me. I want to see my grandchildren. Can you arrange it legally? Well, as their grandmother, you have visitation rights. But if Mrs. Mitchell refuses, she's about to be homeless and desperate. I think she'll agree to anything right now. Draw up a proposal. She gets an extension on her eviction, 60 more days instead of 30, in exchange for regular unsupervised visits with Zion and Amara. Every weekend, starting immediately. There was a pause. Mrs. Washington, you know she's going to see this as you manipulating her. Good. Because that's exactly what I'm doing. My son-in-law is a lawyer, Gerald. If he's worth his degree, he'll explain to my daughter that this is the best deal she's going to get. The proposal was delivered the next day. Candace called within the hour. I answered this time. "What kind of game are you playing?" Her voice was shaking. "No game. I miss my grandchildren. The lawyer says you can have more time if I get to see them. Seems reasonable to me." "You contacted our landlord? How do you even know these people?" "I clean houses, remember? I know a lot of people you've never bothered to meet." She was quiet for a long moment. "You really won't help us? Your own family?" "Candace, you threw me away like garbage. On the day we buried your father, what kind of help were you expecting?" "I said I was sorry." "No, baby, you still haven't said that." More silence. Then, "Fine. You can see the kids. But this doesn't change anything between us." "I know. Bring them Saturday at 10. And Candace, make sure they've eaten. We're going to have a full day." She hung up without saying goodbye. That Saturday morning, Candace's Mercedes pulled into my driveway. She practically pushed Zion and Amara out of the car, told them, "Be good for Grandma," and sped off before I could even hug them properly. Zion was 7, tall for his age, with his grandfather's eyes. Amara was 5, all energy and curls and questions. They stood on my porch, looking uncertain, like they weren't sure if they were supposed to remember me. "Hey, babies," I said softly. "Come give your grandma some sugar." Amara came first, shy but curious. Zion followed more slowly. I hugged them both, breathing in their little kid smell, feeling tears prick my eyes. "Are you sad, Grandma?" Amara asked. "No, baby. These are happy tears. I missed you both so much. You know what? Your Grandpa Raymond wanted me to give you something. Come on inside." I'd spent the week preparing. I'd gotten out all the photo albums, all the home videos. I'd set up Raymond's old record player and pulled out his favorite albums. I'd made his special pancakes, the ones with chocolate chips that make a smiley face. We spent the day remembering a man they barely got to know. I told them stories about their grandfather, how he'd built their mother's first dollhouse with his own hands, how he'd coached Little League for 10 years, how he'd cry every time he watched The Color Purple, how he'd loved them more than anything. "Why didn't Mommy bring us to see Grandpa more?" Zion asked. His question was innocent, but it cut deep. "Your mommy was very busy, sweetheart. She's always busy," he said quietly. "She says we embarrass her sometimes. Like when Amara spilled juice on her friend's white couch. Mommy said we make her look bad." I pulled him close. "Listen to me, Zion. You and your sister could never make anyone look bad. You are smart, kind, beautiful children. Don't ever forget that." At the end of the day, when Candace came to pick them up, both kids hugged me tight and asked when they could come back. "Next Saturday, babies. Every Saturday from now on." Candace wouldn't meet my eyes, just herded the children into her car and left. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. "This is Terrell. We need to talk. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., my office. Just you and me, please." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I called Gerald. "Tomorrow at 2, Terrell Mitchell wants to meet with me at his law office. I want you there, but I want you to wait in the car. Record everything on my phone. If things go wrong, I want evidence." "Mrs. Washington, what do you think is going to happen?" "I think my son-in-law is about to realize he married into the wrong family." I showed up at Terrell's downtown office wearing my housekeeper uniform. Let him see exactly who he thought he was dealing with. His secretary looked at me like I was there to clean the bathrooms and directed me to wait. Terrell came out 15 minutes later. He was a handsome man. I'll give him that. Tall, well-dressed, confident, the kind of man who was used to being the smartest person in the room. He shook my hand with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Mrs. Washington, thank you for coming. Please, come into my office." His office was impressive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Phoenix. Expensive artwork. Leather furniture. Diplomas from Harvard Law on the wall. This was a man who'd built something. "Can I offer you water? Coffee?" "I'm fine, Terrell. Let's get to it. What do you want?" He sat behind his massive desk, steepled his fingers. "Mrs. Washington, I'm going to be direct. This situation with our housing has put tremendous stress on my family. Candace is barely sleeping. The children are confused about why we're moving. And I know that you and Candace had a difficult moment after the funeral." "Is that what she told you? A difficult moment?" "She said things got heated, that you were both grieving and emotions were high." He leaned forward. "I'm not here to judge what happened between you two. I'm here as a father and a husband trying to protect my family. We need more time to find appropriate housing. 60 days isn't enough. Take it up with your landlord." "I would, if I knew who they were. VRW Holdings is buried under 6 layers of corporate structures. Almost like someone doesn't want to be found." His eyes narrowed slightly. "Which makes me wonder, how exactly did a housekeeper manage to negotiate a 60-day extension with such a secretive company?" There it was, the lawyer's instinct kicking in. He was starting to piece things together. "I have friends in low places, Terrell. People talk." "Uh-huh." He didn't believe me. "Mrs. Washington, I've been practicing law for 15 years. I've seen a lot of games, a lot of manipulation. And I'm getting the feeling that there's something going on here that I don't understand. So I'm asking you, woman to man, mother-in-law to son-in-law, what is this really about?" I looked at this man who'd never bothered to visit Raymond in the hospital, who'd supported his wife's decision to keep our grandchildren away from us, who'd probably encouraged Candace's embarrassment of her poor parents. "You want to know what this is about? It's about respect, Terrell. It's about gratitude. It's about a daughter who forgot where she came from. And you're punishing her by, what, refusing to help when she needs you?" "No, baby, I'm teaching her. There's a difference." He sat back, frustrated. "Fine. Keep your secrets. Keep your games. But those are my children too. And I won't have them caught in the middle of whatever vendetta you're running." "Then maybe you should have thought about that before you supported your wife abandoning me in the desert." His face went pale. "She told you about that?" "She didn't have to tell me. I was there, remember? Choking on dust while your wife drove away." He ran his hand over his face. "Jesus. She said she dropped you at a gas station, that you were fine." "Is that what she said?" I stood up. "Well, Terrell, I guess we've all been keeping secrets. Here's one more for you. That 60-day extension. It's the best deal you're going to get. Take it or leave it. But if I were you, I'd start looking for an apartment instead of a house. Something more within your means." I walked out, leaving him sitting there with his Harvard degree and his expensive view and no idea that the woman he'd just dismissed owned the building his office was in. 3 days later, Gerald called with news I'd been waiting for. "Mrs. Washington, your daughter and her husband have hired a forensic accountant. They're trying to trace VRW Holdings. They've also filed a formal complaint with the State Real Estate Commission claiming harassment. And..." He paused. "They've contacted a television news station. They're trying to create public pressure by claiming some anonymous corporate landlord is unfairly targeting a young family." I smiled. "Let them. The paperwork is all legal, right?" "Absolutely. You're well within your rights." "Then I'm not worried. What I am worried about is those babies. Have you drawn up the custody petition?" "Mrs. Washington, are you sure? Grandparent custody is extremely difficult to win unless you can prove parental neglect." "Just have it ready. I'm not saying I'll file it, but I want Candace to know I could." The next Saturday, when I picked up the children, I had Gerald serve Candace with a formal notice. Not a custody petition, just a notice of intent, a warning shot. Her face when she read it was something I'll never forget. Horror, rage, fear, all mixed together. "You wouldn't dare," she whispered. "Try me." That night, Candace showed up at my house at 9 p.m. She didn't knock. She used her old key, the one I'd forgotten she still had, walked right into my living room where I was watching TV. "We need to end this," she said. Her voice was different, harder. "Whatever you're doing, whatever game this is, we need to end it now. Or what? Or I'll make sure you never see Zion and Amara again. I'll move out of state. I'll file for a restraining order. I'll tell the police you're harassing us. Whatever it takes." I turned off the TV, looked at my daughter, really looked at her. She'd lost weight, had dark circles under her eyes. Her hands were shaking. "You'd keep my grandchildren from me?" I asked quietly. "Knowing it would hurt them? Knowing they've already lost their grandfather?" "If that's what it takes to protect my family from whatever you've become, yes." I stood up slowly, walked toward her until we were inches apart. "Let me tell you what I've become, Candace. I've become a woman who knows her worth. I've become a woman who won't be disrespected by her own child. I've become a woman who's done apologizing for working honest jobs and building an honest life. You're destroying my life. No, baby. I'm just stepping back and letting you see what you built on your own. And you know what? It's not as solid as you thought it was." She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I don't understand. Why are you doing this? What do you want from me?" "The truth, Candace. I want you to tell me the truth. Why are you so ashamed of me?" She froze, opened her mouth, closed it. And for the first time in years, I saw my daughter, my real daughter, not the designer clothes and the fake smile, break down. "Because," she sobbed, "because when I look at you, I see everything I was afraid I'd become." Before I could respond, before I could process what she'd just said, my phone rang. It was Sister Beatrice. "Sister Vivian, turn on Channel 12, right now." I grabbed the remote. There on the screen was Candace and Terrell's house, my property, with a news van parked in front. The reporter was speaking. "A Paradise Valley family claims they're being unfairly evicted by a mysterious corporate landlord, with only days left to find a new home. The mother of two says she suspects discrimination and is demanding answers. More on this story at 11. Candace saw it too. Her face went from devastated to calculating in seconds. "I didn't approve that," she said quickly. "Terrell must have—" "Get out of my house! Mother, get out!" She left. But as I watched that news report, watched them paint my daughter as a victim, watched them demonize the faceless corporation that was trying to evict a young family, I realized something. It was time to stop hiding in the shadows. It was time for my daughter, and everyone else, to learn exactly who Vivian Washington really was. The news story aired that Tuesday night at 11. I watched it with Sister Beatrice, Sister Carmen, and Pastor Elijah in my living room. They'd come over after seeing the promo, worried about what was happening. On screen, Candace stood in front of her beautiful house, my house, with Terrell beside her and the children strategically positioned to look sad. The reporter's voice was sympathetic. "Candace Mitchell, a local businesswoman and mother of two, says her family is being forced out of their home by VRW Holdings, a mysterious corporation that refuses to explain why." Then Candace spoke directly to the camera. "We've been model tenants for 7 years. Never late, never caused problems. And suddenly, with no explanation, we're being evicted. My children are going to lose their home, their school, their friends, all because some faceless corporation decided we don't matter." The reporter turned to Terrell. "As an attorney, what legal recourse do you have?" "We're exploring all options," Terrell said smoothly. "But the corporation is hiding behind layers of LLCs. We can't even find out who owns it to negotiate. It's corporate bullying at its worst." The segment ended with a close-up of little Amara asking, "Daddy, why do we have to leave?" Sister Beatrice squeezed my hand. "Sister Vivian, I don't understand what's happening, but I know you. If you're involved in this somehow, You must have your reasons." Pastor Elijah was quieter. He'd been watching me throughout the broadcast, and I could see him putting pieces together. "Sister Vivian, is there something you want to tell us?" I looked at these good people who'd loved me and Raymond for decades. People who'd brought us casseroles when we were tired, prayed over us when Raymond was sick, celebrated with us in good times. Real family. "Pastor, remember what I told you? About who I really am?" "Yes." "That house they're being evicted from? I own it. VRW Holdings is mine. All of it is mine." Sister Carmen gasped. Sister Beatrice's mouth fell open. Pastor Elijah just nodded slowly, like he'd suspected as much. "Sweet Jesus," Sister Carmen whispered. "You're Candace's landlord?" "For 7 years. She never knew." "But why?" "Because she's ashamed of me. Because she abandoned me on the side of the road after we buried Raymond. Because my grandchildren barely know me. Because sometimes when someone you love treats you like you're worthless, you have to show them exactly what they threw away." The room was silent for a long moment. Then Sister Beatrice started laughing. Not a mean laugh, a cleansing one, the kind that comes when something broken finally makes sense. "Oh, honey," she said, wiping her eyes. "Oh, honey, Raymond would have loved this." "You think?" "Child, that man always said Candace needed to be humbled before she destroyed herself. He just never lived long enough to see it happen." She squeezed my hand again. "So what's your next move?" "The celebration of life we're planning for Raymond? I want to move it up, this Saturday. And I want to invite everyone, the whole church, all our friends, and yes, Candace and her family. It's time for everyone to see the truth." Pastor Elijah leaned forward. "Sister Vivian, what exactly are you planning?" "A memorial service, a testimony, and a revelation that's going to shake some people to their core." I looked at him steadily. "Can I count on you?" He thought for a moment, then smiled. "Brother Raymond was my friend. If this is what he wanted, then yes, you can count on me." The next morning, I called Gerald. "I want to buy the news station's time. Thursday night, 7 p.m. I want to tell my story." "Mrs. Washington, are you sure? Once you go public?" "I'm sure. Set it up. And Gerald, I want you to prepare another document. A new lease agreement for 4782 Desert Vista Drive. But we'll talk about the terms later." "Yes, ma'am." Then I called the number on the business card from the reporter who'd done the story. She answered on the second ring. "This is Vanessa Torres." "Ms. Torres, my name is Vivian Washington. I'm the owner of VRW Holdings, the company that's evicting Candace Mitchell, and I'd like to tell you the real story." There was a shocked pause. "Mrs. Washington, Yes, absolutely. When can we meet?" "Thursday. Your station, 7 p.m., live broadcast. And Ms. Torres, you're going to want to bring your best cameras. This is going to be bigger than you think." The news station jumped at the opportunity. By Wednesday, they were running promos. Mystery landlord to reveal identity and tell their side of the story. Thursday at 7. I didn't tell Candace. Didn't tell anyone except the people in my living room that Tuesday night. I just prepared. I went through my files, pulled out property records, bank statements, tax returns. I had Gerald prepare a complete portfolio of my holdings. I chose my outfit carefully, not my housekeeper uniform, but a beautiful emerald dress that Raymond had bought me for our 30th anniversary. The one I'd never worn because I was saving it for something special. Thursday evening, Sister Beatrice did my hair. Sister Carmen did my makeup. Pastor Elijah drove me to the station and waited in the green room with me. "You nervous?" he asked. "Terrified," I admitted. Raymond always handled the business side quietly. I was happy to stay in the background. But he's not here anymore, and our daughter needs to learn this lesson. She's going to be angry. She's already angry. But maybe after the anger burns out, there'll be room for something else. Understanding, maybe. Or at least respect. At 6:55, the producer came to get me. As I walked to the studio, my phone started buzzing. Candace. I silenced it and kept walking. The studio was bright and cold. Vanessa Torres was warm though, professional but kind. We did a quick sound check, and then we were live. "Good evening," Vanessa said to the camera. "Earlier this week, we brought you the story of a Paradise Valley family facing eviction from a mysterious corporate landlord. Tonight, that landlord has agreed to reveal her identity and tell her side of the story. Joining us is Vivian Washington, owner of VRW Holdings. Mrs. Washington, thank you for being here." "Thank you for having me." Let's start with the obvious question. Why are you evicting the Mitchell family? I looked directly into the camera, imagining Candace watching. Because the Mitchell family is my daughter, her husband, and my 2 grandchildren. And it's time my daughter learned who her mother really is. Vanessa's professional composure cracked. "I'm sorry, what?" "My name is Vivian Washington. For 38 years, I worked as a housekeeper. My husband, Raymond, worked construction. We raised our daughter Candace in a modest home, taught her about faith, hard work, and family. What she doesn't know, what nobody except my lawyer and my pastor knew until recently, is that 25 years ago I started buying real estate. Over the years, I built a portfolio of 43 properties worth approximately $8 million. One of those properties is the house my daughter has been renting for the past 7 years." Vanessa was staring at me, speechless. I continued. "My daughter has been ashamed of me for years. Ashamed that her mother is a housekeeper, ashamed to introduce me to her wealthy friends. She stopped bringing my grandchildren around because she didn't want them to know where they came from. And 1 week after we buried my husband, her father, she drove me 40 miles into the desert and abandoned me on the side of the road. She told me I was on my own, that she was done being embarrassed by me. Mrs. Washington, she had no idea that the embarrassing mother she threw away owns her house, owns the building her husband's law office is in, owns half the properties in the neighborhoods she shops in. She thought she was abandoning a helpless old housekeeper. What she actually did was betray the woman who'd been quietly supporting her life all along." I pulled out the documents Gerald had prepared. "These are the property records, the bank statements, the tax returns. Everything is legal, everything is documented. I'm not evicting my daughter because I'm cruel. I'm evicting her because she needs to learn that wealth isn't about money. It's about character. It's about respect. It's about knowing your worth and not measuring it by how much someone else looks down on you." Vanessa found her voice. "So this is revenge?" "No, Ms. Torres. This is education. My husband Raymond, God rest his soul, he asked me before he died to teach our daughter this lesson. He said real wealth isn't about what you have. It's about who you are when nobody's watching, who you are when someone needs you, who you are when it costs you something to be kind. But Mrs. Washington, by going public like this, you're humiliating your daughter on television." "My daughter humiliated herself when she went on television to play the victim. I'm just providing context." I leaned forward. "Candace, baby, if you're watching, and I know you are, I need you to understand something. I never wanted to be rich. I wanted to be free. Free to help people without them knowing. Free to live simply. Free to see who you'd become without money changing things. And what I saw broke my heart." Tears were running down my face now, but I didn't stop. "You became someone who values appearances over substance. Someone who measures people by their job titles instead of their character. Someone who forgot that the hands that cleaned toilets also built an empire. Someone who forgot that the mother you were ashamed of loved you enough to let you learn the hard way." "What happens now?" Vanessa asked gently. "Now? Now my daughter has a choice. She can keep fighting, keep playing the victim, keep pretending that she's the wronged party. Or she can come to her father's memorial service this Saturday at Greater Faith Baptist Church at 2 p.m., stand up in front of everyone, and be honest about who she is, about what she did, about what she's learned. And if she does that, I smiled through my tears. Then we start over. She keeps her house, I keep my grandchildren in my life, and we figure out how to be a family again. But it has to start with truth. No more hiding, no more shame, no more pretending. The interview lasted another 20 minutes. Vanessa asked tough questions, and I answered them honestly, about the money, about the properties, about my decision to stay working as a housekeeper even after I became wealthy, about Raymond's illness and Candace's absence, about being abandoned in the desert, about everything. When it was over and the cameras stopped rolling, Vanessa hugged me. "Mrs. Washington, that was the most extraordinary interview I've ever done. Your daughter is very lucky." "I don't know about that," I said, "but maybe after Saturday, we'll both know who we really are." Pastor Elijah drove me home in silence. When we pulled up to my house, Candace's car was in the driveway. She was sitting on my porch steps, and she'd been crying for a while. "You want me to stay?" Pastor Elijah asked. "No, this is between me and my daughter." I walked up slowly. Candace looked up at me, her face destroyed. "Everyone knows," she whispered. "Everyone. My phone hasn't stopped ringing. Terrell's partners saw it. My friends saw it. Everyone knows what I did to you." "Yes. Everyone knows I'm a terrible person." "That's not what I said, Candace. I said you made terrible choices. There's a difference." She stood up, shaking. "How could you do this to me, on television, in front of everyone? How could you leave me in the desert, baby? On the day we buried your father?" She flinched like I'd hit her. I don't have an excuse. I was angry. I was scared. I've been scared for so long." "Scared of what?" "Of ending up like you!" The words burst out of her. "Of being 60 years old and still cleaning other people's toilets. Of being invisible. Of not mattering." "And you think I don't matter?" I thought..." She collapsed back onto the steps, sobbing. "I thought you were everything I didn't want to be. And I've spent my whole adult life running from you, from what you represent, from the idea that I might not be special, that I might not make it, that I might end up ordinary." I sat down beside her. "Baby, you know what's extraordinary? Getting up at 5 a.m. every day for 38 years, building something from nothing, loving someone enough to stay invisible so they can shine. That's extraordinary. But you couldn't see it because you were measuring me by the wrong standards." "I know that now," she whispered. "God, I know that now. You're worth $8 million. $8 million. And you were still cleaning houses, still living in this little house, still wearing that uniform." "Why?" "Because the money was never the point. The freedom was the point. The ability to help people without them knowing. The ability to see what people were really made of when they thought I had nothing. The ability to teach my daughter the most important lesson of her life." She looked at me with swollen eyes. "That I'm a terrible person?" "No, honey. That appearances don't matter. That real wealth is who you are when nobody's impressed. That the people you look down on might be the ones holding you up." We sat there in silence for a long time. Finally, she said, "I don't know how to fix this. Come to the memorial service Saturday. Tell the truth. Not for me. For you. For those babies inside that house who need to know their mother is brave enough to be honest. Everyone will hate me. Maybe. Or maybe they'll see a woman who made mistakes and owned them. That's the kind of person worth respecting." She wiped her face. "The house? Are you really going to let us keep it?" "If you come Saturday, if you tell the truth, if you start treating me like your mother instead of your shame, then yes, new lease, same terms. But Candace, If you ever, and I mean ever, disrespect me again, if you keep my grandchildren from me, if you go back to being ashamed, I will end that lease so fast it'll make your head spin. Do you understand?" "Yes, ma'am." "And one more thing. Every Sunday dinner, you and Terrell and those babies are coming to this house. We're going to sit around this table, eat my cooking, and be a family. Real family. Not the Instagram version, not the version you show your rich friends. Real, messy, honest family." "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." Saturday afternoon, Greater Faith Baptist Church was packed. The news coverage had made sure of that. But it wasn't spectators I saw when I looked around. It was my real community. Church members who'd known me for 40 years. People whose houses I'd cleaned. Families I'd helped quietly over the years. They were all there for Raymond, and for me. Pastor Elijah opened the service with a prayer, then turned to me. "Sister Vivian has asked to share some words." "Sister?" I walked to the pulpit in my emerald dress, looked out at all those faces, found Candace in the third row, sitting between Terrell and the children. She looked terrified. "Most of you knew Raymond Washington as a good man," I began. "A faithful man, a man who worked hard, loved his family, and served this church. What you didn't know, what almost nobody knew, was that Raymond and I built something extraordinary together. Not just a marriage, though that was extraordinary, but an empire, a real estate empire worth $8 million. The gasps echoed through the church. I continued. "We kept it secret for a reason. We wanted to see what people were made of when they thought we had nothing. We wanted to help people without them feeling obligated. We wanted to teach our daughter that your job doesn't define your worth. Unfortunately, that last lesson didn't take, at least not at first." I looked directly at Candace. "My daughter has something she wants to say." "Candace?" For a moment, I thought she wouldn't do it. She just sat there, frozen. Then Zion took her hand, and something shifted in her face. She stood up slowly and walked to the front. "Hi," she said quietly. "I'm Candace Mitchell, Vivian Washington's daughter. And I need to tell you all the truth about who I am." Her voice was shaking, but she kept going. "For years, I've been ashamed of my mother, ashamed that she was a housekeeper, ashamed of her simple life, ashamed to introduce her to my friends. I stopped bringing my children around because I didn't want them to know we came from humble beginnings. I wanted everyone to think I was self-made, that I'd built my life on my own." Tears were streaming down her face now. "One week after we buried my father, I drove my mother 40 miles into the desert and abandoned her on the side of the road. I told her she was on her own, that I was done being embarrassed by her. I left her there and drove away." The church was dead silent. What I didn't know, what I never bothered to learn, was that my embarrassing mother owned the house I lived in, owned my husband's office building, had been quietly supporting my life in ways I never imagined. She had $8 million, and she chose to keep cleaning houses because she loved the work and the freedom. And I called her pathetic. She turned to me. "Mama, I can't undo what I did. I can't take back the years I kept your grandchildren from you. I can't erase the times I made you feel small. But I can tell you the truth now. I was wrong. About everything. You are the strongest, smartest, most extraordinary woman I've ever known. And I'm sorry. I am so, so sorry." She was sobbing now, and so was half the church. I stood up and walked to her. Pulled her into my arms the way I did when she was little and had scraped her knee. "I forgive you, baby," I whispered. "Your daddy and I both forgive you." The rest of the service was beautiful. People shared stories about Raymond. Sister Beatrice sang, "His eye is on the sparrow." Pastor Elijah preached a sermon about redemption and restoration that had everyone on their feet. Afterward, during the repast, something amazing happened. People who'd seen the news coverage came up to me, not to gawk, but to share their own stories. Stories about being underestimated, about being judged by their jobs, or their zip codes, or their clothes, about hiding their truth because the world couldn't handle it. One elderly woman grabbed my hand. "I clean houses too, baby. Have for 40 years. And I own 3 rental properties. My children don't know, but maybe it's time they learned." A young man approached nervously. "Mrs. Washington, I saw your interview. I'm ashamed to say I'm one of your tenants, building on Jefferson Street. I've been complaining about my landlord for months, saying they're probably some greedy corporation. I had no idea it was you. I had no idea you were... you. And now that you know? Now I'm going to pay my rent on time and stop leaving trash in the hallway." We both laughed. Candace spent the afternoon by my side. Really by my side. Not just physically present, but actually there. She introduced me to her friends properly. "This is my mother, Vivian Washington. She's a real estate mogul and the strongest woman I know." Terrell apologized too, quietly, man to man, with Pastor Elijah there. "I supported every bad decision my wife made. I should have known better. I should have seen what you were doing for us. I'm sorry, Mrs. Washington." "Call me Mama Viv," I said. "And Terrell, you're a good lawyer and a good father. Just be a better son." "Yes, ma'am." The best part was watching Zion and Amara with me, really seeing me. Amara asked, "Grandma, are you really rich?" "Yes, baby." "But you still clean houses?" "I do." "Why?" "Because I like it. Because it makes me happy. Because you should do what you love, not what impresses other people." Zion was quieter, more thoughtful. He held my hand most of the afternoon, like he was afraid I'd disappear. Finally, he asked, "Grandma, why did you let Mommy think you were poor?" "Because I wanted her to love me for who I am, not what I have." But I think maybe I let the lesson go on too long. Sometimes we hurt people trying to teach them, and that's not right either. "Are you and Mommy okay now?" "We're getting there, sweetheart. We're getting there." As the afternoon turned to evening and people started leaving, Candace helped me clean up. Just the two of us, working side by side in the church kitchen like we used to when she was young. "Mama," she said, washing a dish, "can I ask you something?" "Always." "What made you decide to reveal everything? You could have just evicted us quietly, made us figure it out. Why go on television?" I dried the dish she handed me. "Because you went on television first, baby. And I realized that if I let you keep playing the victim, you'd never learn. You'd just find someone else to blame, someone else to be ashamed of. I had to show you the truth in a way you couldn't run from." It was the hardest thing I've ever watched. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. Harder than building a business. Harder than burying your father. Because I had to risk losing you completely to save you. She turned to me, her hands still in the soapy water. "You won't lose me, Mama. Never again. I promise. I'm going to hold you to that promise. Starting with Sunday dinner tomorrow, 5 o'clock. Don't be late." She smiled. A real smile. My daughter's smile, the one I hadn't seen in years. "We'll be there." That night, alone in my house for the first time since the memorial, I sat in Raymond's chair and talked to him. "Well, baby, I did it. I taught her. Just like you asked. But Lord, it was hard. It was so hard." I could almost hear his voice. "You did good, Viv. You did real good." "I hope so. I hope I didn't damage her too much. I hope those grandbabies are going to be okay." "They're going to be more than okay, because they've got you now, the real you." "I miss you, Raymond." "I know, baby, but I'm proud of you. Keep building, keep teaching, keep being exactly who you are." I fell asleep in that chair, and when I woke up Sunday morning, my phone had a text from Candace. "We'll be there at 4:30, bringing ingredients for Daddy's favorite cornbread. Love you, Mama." 3 months later, I'm sitting on my porch watching Zion and Amara play in the yard. They come over every weekend now and every Sunday for dinner. Candace and Terrell, too. We're learning how to be a family again. It's not perfect. Some wounds take time to heal, but it's real. Candace is different now. She volunteers at the church. She started a foundation in Raymond's name to help young people buy their first homes. She still lives in my property, but now she knows who owns it. And every month when she pays rent, she writes, "Thank you, Mama," in the memo line. I still clean houses. Sister Beatrice thinks I'm crazy, but it makes me happy. I'm just more selective now about whose houses I clean. And I've started mentoring young women who want to build their own businesses, teaching them what Raymond and I learned, that real wealth is freedom, respect, and the ability to be exactly who you are without apology. The news story went viral. I got calls from magazines, TV shows, book publishers. I turned them all down except one, a podcast about financial literacy in the Black community. I told our story there, not for fame, but because maybe someone else needs to hear that you can build something extraordinary while the world sleeps on you. VRW. Holdings is still growing. I've bought 6 more properties in the last 3 months. One of them I'm turning into affordable housing for seniors, people like me who worked their whole lives and deserve dignity in their retirement. Sometimes I think about that day on the desert road, the dust, the heat, the feeling of being abandoned by my own child. And then I think about Raymond's words. Promise me you'll teach her. I kept my promise, baby. And you know what? She learned. She really learned. Today is Sunday. Candace and the family will be here in an hour. I'm making Raymond's favorite meal: pot roast, collard greens, mac and cheese, and that cornbread Candace has finally learned to make right. We'll sit around this table in my simple house and we'll be family. Real, honest, imperfect family. And that, more than any amount of money, is true wealth. That's all for today's story. If this touched your heart, please subscribe and share your own experiences below. We're all in this together.